And we are live. Welcome to the first episode of the 2018 Funvee Tailgate College Football Preview Series. I, of course, am the G-Man. With me is my man, Matty D. What's up, buddy?
Yeah, can you smell it, by the way? Because it's coming, man.
It's coming big.
Coming.
We're getting more and more commercials about college football. I mean, you get them as soon as the season ends about,
Right.
who's going to be in next year. But I mean, it's August, preseason football for the pros is underway.
Mm-hmm.
You're starting to see, high school teams getting back to two-a-days. Football is all around us, and the college game pretty soon is going to consume our Saturday afternoons.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's the only negative is we're losing the summer. That's going to be a bummer. But other than that, I'm fired up. I'm ready. I'm ready for football.
Yep. The nice thing too, being in Philly, that it stays warm until like November now.
Right. Exactly. That's not even going to be right. It's basically full summer. Right.
Yeah. We just lose humidity. That's what we should be happy about that.
Right. Exactly.
Anyone else, if you actually do get cold, we feel sorry for you, but you also probably get more snow than we do. So
that's true.
Enjoy the ski weather.
That's true. And, it's definitely, I mean, I'm excited to get some, get out here and have some conversations about football because it's lining up both college and NFL, but specifically for college, it's lining up.
Oh yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
I'm ready.
Absolutely. I am as well. So we are previewing today the ACC. We're also doing the Pac-12. We're dropping these at the same time, recording them back to back. We're trying something new. Last year we did in the same episode. Want to see if this might work. A little difference. We'd love to hear your feedback. In this pod, we're talking ACC. Other pod's going to be Pac-12. Probably do a similar intro for the Pac-12 pod. But the ACC, Matt, going to be a little different than last year.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be up front. And when I've been reviewing all of the major conferences, this, to me, in my opinion, is the weakest. I think it's the weakest one. Of the major class.
We're getting to like pre-Jameis Winston ACC, where for those who don't remember 5-6 years ago before Jameis Winston won the Heisman, and you had a number of ACC teams that were making runs. That's when Duke randomly started becoming good.
Yeah, I had a couple good
seasons. Remember,
like
before that, it was either Florida State or even further back, just Miami or just Virginia Tech. Maybe one or the other was up there. There was a couple of years there when Matt Ryan was at BC that they were the team to come out of the ACC, and it was really one. And in the BCS era, that's why they always got kind of hosed. If they didn't have an undefeated team, they'd only get the one team in the Orange Bowl. And it seems like we're going to have that again.
Yeah. I mean, now the thing is, I said they might be the weakest, but it doesn't mean they don't have
certainly
a big-time contender, which I know we will touch on. The weird thing is there's some teams here that you expect to be really good that haven't that don't appear like they're going to be like. That's the thing that gets me. Like there's some names in this conference. They're just it's not a good year for them for a various number of reasons, and we'll touch on a few teams as we walk through that here.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So we're going to start. We're going to do it division by division. For those that didn't listen last year, we go team by team. We basically just go, who we start with number one, and then we see if we have the same one, and then we pick one to talk about, and then just continue on, cover every single team. Then at the end, we make some predictions to see who wins the conference, if anyone, if not multiple teams, since we can say that now with the SEC putting in 2, it make the playoffs, potential Heisman winners, all that good stuff. So a lot of fun. But let's start right with the Atlantic division. And I think we're probably going to have the same team at number 1 for the Atlantic.
Yeah, to me, it's not even close. You honestly, you probably won't even win money if you bet that they'll win the ACC, and that's the Clemson Tigers. Nope. They are, as they've been over the past, how many years? I mean, 5-10 years they've been this good? They're just 5 years, 10 years, close to 10? Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm looking at this, and they, in the last 10 years, have gone 12-2 last year, 14-1 when they were national champions, 14-1 when they lost the national championship game, 10-3 in 14, 11-2 in 13, 11-2 in 12, 10-4 in 11, and then their last under 500 game, and they still made a bowl game, was 2010 when they went 6-7.
Right. I mean, elite level. They recruit as good as anybody. And Dabo Swinney's just done an absolute fantastic job because I didn't grow up with Clemson being a superstar, consistently superstar kind of team. To me, they've definitely just been rock stars in this entire conference. And I think this year in particular, I think we have an opportunity to be looking at the greatest, arguably the greatest defensive line in the history of college football. We're talking Miami in its prime. We're talking some of the Alabama defensive lines we've seen recently. 4 guys who all should probably be drafted in the first round, and 3 of which who are top 10 prospects, period, in the NFL, which is amazing. And the performance has also been there in college. These aren't projections. These guys are stars right now.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of these guys should have gone out last year, and it was surprising that they all came back. They all came back. And, I mean, it's not even just their defensive line that's stellar. Their D-backs are pretty good. Their linebackers are really good. Mm-hmm. They're going to be a lot of fun to watch. And you and I were talking the other night of trying to set an over-under on when they actually let up more than like 21 points in the regular season, which they don't play Florida State until the end of October. They play NC State the week before that.
Yeah,
and those are
the thing you
two
look
of the
at
probably
is,
bigger contenders.
Yeah, the thing you look at is like which other offense in this division is any good, in this conference is any good. They play they're at Texas A&M week 2, by the way.
Yeah.
What I would say to that is
with Jimbo.
Right, Jimbo's there. He's got recruits from someone, so there's an opportunity there for them to score some points. I don't think they'll win, but it's at College Station. So the weird part is if Clemson gets through that game, I don't see it happening.
Yeah.
Now they play South Carolina
to
end the year, but South Carolina has been bad for a few years here as well. So
that's the very end of their non-conference schedule.
Yeah. Right.
At the end of the schedule, even.
Right. Yeah, last game of the year, which is normal for them. Yep. So,
but I mean, look at this. Like their second half of the season in conference playing, and if you include South Carolina, their last 6 games, home against NC State, probably the closest threat offensively. They have a really good quarterback, and we'll talk about him in a bit. Mm-hmm. At Florida State, so that game's going to be huge. Home against Louisville, who's going to be down. They lost Lamar Jackson. At Boston College, home against Duke, and then home against South Carolina. I mean, these guys, they could easily go 12-0 and go right into the ACC championship game with
that's the expectation, isn't it?
Yeah, with an undefeated record and 3 touchdown favorites in that game.
Yeah, what I would tell you is so there's 2 things that I think potentially are their hiccups here. One has just been their trend over the last few seasons of that shocking mid-season hiccup. Right, they lose to a Pitt, they lost to Syracuse. The one thing, as good as the Clemson has been, the one thing that sets, say, an Alabama apart and why they've been a dynasty over the past 10 years is that Nick Saban gets his guys up for every single game. They may lose to a really good team or a rival like Auburn, but they never seem to drop a game to a Syracuse or a Pitt. And also, by the way, the low end of the SEC is better than the low end of the ACC, too.
I like that you say they never lose to a Syracuse or a Pitt, and they lost to Syracuse last year.
No. Alabama doesn't.
Oh, Alabama. Okay.
Right. Alabama loses to Auburn to end the year. They lose to LSU. Yep. They lose to teams. And they lost to Mississippi State, I believe, a couple years ago, maybe even Ole Miss. But Ole Miss and Mississippi State are good programs in a loaded conference. Pitt and Syracuse are not loaded. Although, Pitt provides a lot of NFL prospects, but they're not loaded every year. They're not a powerhouse. That's got to be Dabo's hardest focus, is keeping everybody locked in and ready every week. They can't have an off week, not in today's playoff climate, and not in a division, not in a conference, that's as weak as the ACC is perceived to be.
No, absolutely. It's one of those where, like Boise State, when they were trying to, in all those years that they tried to make the run where they couldn't go undefeated, and it seemed like they could miss the BCS altogether, not even just the national championship hopes. Like it's almost like that if they go 11-1, that it's going to be a tough sell for, say, like an Auburn or Georgia. And we're going to do the SEC at another time, but they go on a run with presumably Alabama. Who's to say that they don't feel, the committee doesn't feel any remorse for leaving out a Clemson team who falls to, even if it is Syracuse again, although they're playing at Clemson this year, but who's to say that they don't leave them out?
Right, exactly. And I think that's something that Sweeney's got to be staring at for quite a bit. The other thing I think that we have to discuss is not necessarily to get through the ACC, but if this team wants to win a national championship, the quarterback situation is going to be fascinating. I got to see them in person last year. Very thankful for it. Playing Wake Forest, not a powerhouse.
Shout out to you.
Yep. But I got to see Kelly Bryant, the quarterback, in person. He's not Deshaun Watson. He does not throw the football like Deshaun Watson does. A lot of talent, but he didn't have necessarily a great year last year. And Trevor Lawrence, the 5-star prospect, who reminds me a little bit of Sunshine with his long golden hair from remember the Titans. He's like the talk of the town. And if Kelly Bryant struggles at all, Lawrence is probably going to step in. Sweeney, this is high-level college football. So, Sweeney will just take it. So definitely something to monitor, I think, pretty frequently there, if you ask me. Yeah,
they still have their running back core, though, so they can always fall back on that. And
their
quarterbacking is suspect.
Yeah, no, you're definitely correct. They're definitely good running back core and okay wide receivers. They don't blow me away, but they definitely have, things that they can do there. Absolutely.
Yeah, again, it's the same thing, though. They return most of their guys. So, I mean, at the very least, you can fall back on chemistry. I know that's not the best stat to quote, but
right. No, I agree.
Experience is tough to beat.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Try to think of, those to me are really the hiccups, and they don't have necessarily a super strong out-of-conference schedule, which we go back and forth. That's why having one loss may keep them out if another team has a lot. But who is your second team in this division?
So I have Florida State. I know we talked about this a little bit, so you might be different, but I think with getting DeAndre Francois back this year, I think that really helps them out a ton. Similarly to what we were just talking about with Clemson, they still have a pretty strong running back group, and I think that's going to do a lot for them. Their defense is going to be, still pretty good. It's not going to be the level of Clemson, but it's still going to be pretty solid in terms of how they perform. So, a similar schedule as Clemson. Their out of conference includes Notre Dame, which is that, the rotating ACC schedule they get. And they also have to play Florida at the end of the season. So the rest of it, though, we see them play Virginia Tech right off the bat. But then their non-conference includes Samford and Northern Illinois as well. So we'll see how they do. But just to kind of continue on why I think I have them at number 2, because I know that you might not, and we'll get your opinion in a second. Even with a new coach, Willie Taggart, who we've seen him before with South Florida. We saw him with Oregon most recently. I really like what these guys have going, and I think they can really put something together. So we'll see. Again, I like that defense, not as much as Clemson, but we will for sure see a Florida State team that comes out of the gate firing, and by the time they finally do play Clemson at the end of October, it's going to be gangbusters from there.
Jordy!
Yo.
I lost you, dude.
Yeah, I know you were going in and out for a little bit while I was talking. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, I lost you right as you started talking about Florida State. You talk about, their running back, Akron, and that's when boom, drop.
Yeah. So I basically just finished it up talking about how I have them at number 2. Really like their quarterback play and their running backs. And then I finished off talking a little bit about their defense and said, I know you might not have them. I'm going to let you talk about them or who your number 2 might be in a second and then talk.
Let's roll right into it then. All right, so I'm going to ready. You just tell me when you're ready. Me, do you want to start talking?
Yeah, so we'll go, and when I go 3, 2, 1, it's as if I just finished talking
Perfect.
about
I'll
their
jump right
defense.
in.
All right, 3, 2, 1.
Yeah, I mean, I would also. I mean, look, I agree that Florida State they're in a weird dark horse position this year. I think my problem with them is I don't know if I'm a big Willie Taggart guy.
Yeah.
He didn't do much for me in Oregon. It's definitely messy there. You know, they thought they were going to the college football playoff, but they lose to Alabama and they lose Francois. That's a big deal. He's back. I think people are underrating his presence there. Cam Akers is a running back. He's going to be really good. The defense concerns me a little bit, which is why I think in year one of Taggart, the team takes a slight step back, which is why I'm going to pick a huge dark horse favorite to finish second, a distant second, but second. By the way, you said they play Notre Dame. They also play Florida to end the year, but it's home. So we'll see what happens.
Yep.
I'm going to take, though, the Boston College Golden Eagles.
That's what I thought you'd do.
To finish second.
All right.
Yeah.
They're my number 3, so we'll just roll right into them.
I think a couple things. They don't have a difficult non-conference schedule. They have some cupcakes early. They do play at Purdue and versus Temple, and I don't want to disregard either of those teams because they're both decent.
I really wish that game could be at Temple so we could go watch them because they have some guys that I'd love to see live.
Yeah. Now they got a little bit of a tough stretch. They go Miami, at Va Tech, Clemson, and FSU to end the year. Syracuse at the end. So they're going to probably have to come into that game with like no losses in the ACC, and they probably are going to walk out with 1 or 2 losses after that at least. But I still think they figure out how to get it done. This is one of the best offenses. This Boston College has produced excellent defensive players for years, but their offense has been horrible. Horrible.
Oh, yeah. Whatever happened to the guy that almost won the Heisman like 5 years ago? You got after the Giants, Mario something?
Aaron Williams, I think was his name, the running back.
Was it Aaron? I thought it was Mario because I remember there was like Super Mario and stuff like that.
Something Williams. You might be right. He kind of fizzed out in the pros. He was on the Giants for a while.
Yeah.
I've been Andre Williams.
Williams
didn't really have he was more of didn't really catch the ball, more of a plotter, plodding along, not at quick first step that you need in the NFL. Great player in college. So they've got a sophomore quarterback, Anthony Brown, good freshman year till he got hurt. But A.J. Dillon is a monster.
That guy's going to be fantastic. That's who I want. That's who I was alluding to before.
Yeah, and I think he's the guy that could have some success against a weak Florida State defense comparatively to normal years. And their defense, they return a lot of guys. They do lose second-round pick Harold Landry, who was a really good pass rusher for them and will be in the pros, it looks like. So I think they sneak into that second spot. Once again, it doesn't really matter because I think Clemson will be way up top, but it could happen.
So I want to ask you a question.
Yeah.
I've seen on a couple different ACC previews that I've read, I've seen for the first team, all 4 D-line positions are all 4 Clemson guys. And on a couple, defensive end Zach Allen of BC sneaks in there. Do you have him 5th? Do you have him 4th? What's your thought on him?
Yeah,
this guy's a stud. It looks like.
I know. I think 5th. I think 5th.
Okay. 100 tackles, 6 sacks last year.
I know. Which, by the way, so what people don't realize, 100 tackles, it's not in 16 games. It's in 12 or 13.
Exactly. Hmm.
Again.
Oh, you're back.
Google, where did you lose me at?
You had just said the 100 tackles were in 12 games. So it'd start from and that's 100. That's 100 tackles and not 16 games, but 12.
Okay. Let's see. Just Googling that error message.
Yeah, I am as well. Interesting. Some are saying it's because of Safari. Some are saying it doesn't matter.
I'm on Safari. Let me see if Mel has anything else.
Okay.
Let me see if I can download Google Chrome real fast.
Cool.
I only use Google. I don't use Safari on anything, but I don't use it. I don't know why she uses it. As far as it would make sense that it runs better on Google Chrome.
Yeah, I would think.
It's a Google platform.
Yeah. Hooray, I get to edit a ton. I'm not meaning that sarcastic. I like it. No, it's no problem at all.
Now it's gonna be like, why did you give it? Shut up, Bill. No one cares.
Oh, what's his face got suspended for hitting Acuna?
I mean, he should.
6 games. So at least one
star. It's legit to me.
Have you seen the Phillies score?
No, was it bad?
They let up 10 runs in the 5th inning.
10? Who was pitching today?
It was Ranger Suarez.
Oh.
And he got pulled for Mark Leiter, and he continued to let up a ton of runs.
Jesus. Well, it says
it was 7-4 when we started recording. Now it's 15-4.
Guys, the fuck.
I know.
Where did it? Why didn't I don't want? No, I want the microphone. Stop. It says I downloaded it. Thank you for downloading Chrome. Where did it go? Where is it? Well, fucker.
Downloads?
That's a good point. You're a smart guy.
Yeah.
I just don't know Max well enough to zoom around. Let's see file.
Yeah.
Fuck. I'm hitting it. Come on, you little bastard.
Keep on keeping on.
Oh my God. What is it? It's verifying what? Verify it. I'll fucking kill you. Opening. Yes. Do it. Do it. Loading. Hey, Guy.
What's up, man?
I'm finally back. Sorry, I have to sign on to Facebook, which no one ever does.
It's all good.
All right, I'm back on though. We're good to go. Sorry.
All right.
Hopefully this will fix it.
It's all good.
On Chrome. Let's dance. All right, so where were we again?
All right, so we're talking about Zach Allen and 100. I just said he had 100 sacks and 100 tackles, 6 sacks, and you were going, and that's not in 16 games, but 12,
which is very impressive.
So you want to start from there? Just start with that.
Yeah, let's start with that. Wait. Time out.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, we're good. Let's.
Want me to count you in?
So wait, what we're gonna jump on to? Trying to figure out how I want to just start it. Yeah. So I had just said 12 games.
Yeah.
Right?
So let's start with you saying that, and then you continuing because it dropped out right when you said 12 games.
Yeah. Go.
All right, 3, 2, 1.
And I mean, the thing is, he's going to. Well, the only concern I have is that now with how Harold Landry gone, well, he did have those numbers last year. Our offense is just going to key in on him. He's a senior, so I expect him to figure it out. But my only concern there, though, would be, without another big name on the other side, what is it going to be like? Because sometimes that can happen. You can take away a tackle like that. But I do think he's going to be really good. They've got the offense and the defense to make some kind of a run, and we're going to go from there. I mean, I would tell you this, though. I think the more fascinating discussion is who's going to come in fourth in the ACC.
No, in the ACC Atlantic.
Yeah. Excuse me, yes.
No, definitely a really good one. I'm going to go with NC State.
Okay.
As mine. I know Louisville's right up there, so I don't know if that's who you have. But...
No, I have NC State as well.
Okay. Yeah, so NC State, that's our number 4. They had themselves a very good season last year, 9-4. They return a okay amount of players, 6 on offense, only 3 on defense, though, so that is a little bit to be concerned about. But I mean, like a lot of teams in the ACC, they start with a interesting out-of-conference schedule with James Madison and Georgia State, but then they host West Virginia, then they go to Marshall before starting ACC play. But I mean, the big thing to look at here is they got Ryan Finley, one of the better quarterbacks, I'd say, in the conference. Guy threw for over 3,500 yards last year, 17 touchdowns, with a receiving core that's decent, but not the best you've ever seen. So, I mean, I like him, and I like what they could potentially do offensively, but defense is definitely going to be a big concern for them.
No, absolutely. I mean, I will tell you this. There's a program being built there by Dave Doran. 7 players drafted this past year in the draft. That's not something you're used to hearing out of NC State. I definitely like him. I think one of the reasons I like him is we've been a little we undervalue Louisville a little bit because they've been pretty good.
Sure.
Now, Lamar Jackson's gone. Heisman Trophy winner, pretty amazing. But that being said, Jawan Pass is going to come in there at Louisville, and he's going to be okay. But I still think the losses are just a little bit too much this year for them to get anything better. I actually am getting close to saying Wake Forest will jump ahead of them if it wasn't for the fact that their quarterback, they lost their quarterback, and they've got their current starters on a 3-game suspension. But that being said, I don't want to just skip over NC State. But I think they're a strong lock for 4, and they're definitely a team that people are going to have to get up for. That Clemson can't not play against Finley and that crew. He's going to have to. They're going to have to be awake to play that game.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I mean, NC State going to be a tough out, I'd say.
Yeah, no, definitely.
They also have made 4 straight bowl games, which I didn't realize.
Yeah, well, PAC have been surprisingly good. I mean, look, they get overshadowed because of the name of North Carolina. You think of UNC. You don't think of NC State.
Yep.
They're a good team, and if you take them lightly, you're not going to beat them. And I think, and they're definitely going to surprise some people. You could argue that they have the best quarterback in the conference.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking he's going to be really good.
Definitely a pro prospect, without a doubt, in my thoughts on it. Easy schedule. Excuse me. Except they do have that out of conference game. West Virginia visits them, and we haven't obviously gotten to the Big 12, but we'll get there.
We'll get there. It's going to be exciting to see that, though.
Unfortunately, they're at Clemson. That's going to be a tough bid there, and they end the season at Louisville and at UNC, which will be tough games as well. Tough. But they get FSU at home. They get Wake at home.
That FSU at NC State game always is thrilling. So that's definitely one you got to key on.
Yeah, I would agree there.
But it sounds like – so do you have at 5? Do you have Wake Forest or do you have Louisville?
No, if their presumed starter, Kendall Hinton, wasn't suspended for 3 games, I would take Wake. I really like the program that Dave Clawson's built there.
Wow, okay.
But I'm going to take Louisville here.
Yeah, I have them.
Yeah,
I have them no matter what.
They've got some wideouts: Jalen Smith, Des Fitzpatrick, Seth Dawkins. These are guys I like. But the defense was not that great, and they lost guys.
Yeah, they only returned 4 starters.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough one, in my opinion, for them this year. Once again, you lose a Heisman Trophy winner at quarterback, it's probably going to be pretty tough for you unless you're Alabama or maybe Clemson.
Yep.
Yeah. So, and you know what? They play Alabama. They open the year at Alabama, which is a bummer for them in a lot of ways. That'll definitely be pretty brutal, I think. Although, Jalen Smith, their top wideout and preseason All-American, All-ACC, is out indefinitely with an emergency appendectomy. So that's going to be interesting when you open the season at Alabama. Yeah,
that's one of those they thought that they were all set when Lamar Jackson was there when they scheduled that home and home. But yeah, they have one of those mutually agreed upon out of conference schedules where they play Bama, so they play a big guy. They have Kentucky, who we'll touch on it when we get to the SEC. But then they have Indiana State, an FCS school in Western Kentucky. So they have one of those. A lot of people think you can, as long as you have like one good guy and you're at a conference schedule, it doesn't matter what the other 3 are. So Louisville's right in there. But I agree with you. I mean, they have a lot of big shoes to fill. Their running back core, not the best. And really what got me to move them down to 5 is just that their defense is going to be lacking. And I think that's going to be a lot to overcome, a tough schedule. And if they don't get off on the right foot, which it's hard to say that when you play an FCS team week 2, but if Alabama really wallops them, it could be tough in their ACC schedule.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And I think we can all agree who's at the bottom of this division.
Yeah. Do you want to cover Wake Forest quickly? Or
we can touch on them. I still think they're a team that once again, I don't think they're as good in their quarterback situation. They're trying to replace a pretty good starter. I think solid all-around roster, but you got a guy through 29 touchdowns last year, and John Wolford, who's gone and did some good things for them and made things happen. This is going to be difficult.
No, for sure.
They play Notre Dame in week 5, I believe. Am I right? Yeah. There's already a tough matchup. Boom, right away off the bat.
My big thing with them and why I had them lower than you, if they had all their starters readily available, their defense is going to be, I don't think, very good.
Yeah, I would agree.
It's going to be like worse, towards the worst of the conference.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree.
But yeah, to finish your point, Syracuse, number 7 in the Atlantic Division. I mean, the best thing they have going for them is that they're returning a lot of starters.
Yeah, they beat Clemson last year. They lost the next 5 games, including the last 3 by 21 points plus. Eric Dungy seems okay at QB, but he's never been healthy. They're not
healthy quarterbacks. We also have to shout out to Rex Culpepper, who beat cancer over the offseason. So shout out to him.
Yeah,
big. That's awesome. Good on him.
It's just it's gonna be a tough year for the Orange. And there's no the other, like, you think of Wake and you think of Wake Forest, you think of NC State, they're rising programs. You think of Syracuse as kind of a falling program, I think, at this point. Early to start, but they get Florida State week 3. And they get Notre Dame at the end of the year. They're at Boston College. At Clemson, there's just going to be some really difficult games in that schedule, in my mind.
Yeah. No, it's going to be tough for them.
Yep.
Well, let's move over to the Coastal Division. This one's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to watch, but I think, at least for me, it's pretty clear who I have at the top.
It's another top-heavy division. It's really a one-team kind of. It would appear at this moment it's a one because of some of the teams who have fallen a little bit. It's Miami, right? You got to go with the Hurricanes. Mm-hmm.
They returned 7 players on both sides of the ball, including all of the guys that made that team so electric last year. And it's going to be fun to watch, man. I mean, Malik Rozier's there. Travis Homer's still there. Their wide receiving core is pretty much intact. 3 of their 5 starting offensive linemen, which is a big, big part of that, including their center, a big part of a quarterback continuing success and not having to get his offensive line all back onto the same page because they've been playing together. So I think that's going to be a fun aspect to watch, and I think the turnover chain, Matt, is going to be alive and well with the Hurricanes this year.
Yeah, no, definitely. I will tell you this. We're going to learn a lot about them right away because they opened the year with LSU, visiting them. So
this is the Jerry World game at Cowboy Stadium. We're going to see Coach O versus Mark Richt, who's coming down or who's been down there for a couple of years.
Yeah.
But yeah, then basically once they get through the Tigers, they should be at least at 3 wins by the end of September because then they play North Carolina at the very end of the month. And then interesting stretch, Florida State, at Virginia, at Boston College after a bye week, Duke, at Georgia Tech, at Virginia Tech, then home for Pitt. So it's going to be a run for them. But, I think we're going to be seeing a couple of those games. They luck out of not having to play Notre Dame in terms of that ACC schedule. And with their top-heavy schedule, I think we could see them making a push for the division and up rankings. And we could see them right in that top 10 of the CFP, potentially.
No, definitely. And we can't talk enough. Mark Richt did a great job at Georgia. Expectations are so high at a school like that. He comes into an institution at Miami. I mean, that football program there is an institution, not necessarily the most moral institution,
no,
but the institution nonetheless. So I think it's going to be interesting there. But yeah, definitely.
No, yeah, for sure. And I think we're both pretty clear there. For number 2. I mean, I think it's UNC. I think that they have a pretty good shot, at least if they can beat Miami to run for the division. I don't know if they went on some sort of tear, if they could make a run at the college football playoff and get even close. I think they probably finish the season at best 10-2. But I mean, they're coming off of a 3-9 season last year. So really it was a kind of one-off because you thought they would be pretty good. So there's a lot of different, variables up in the air for them, but they return 5 guys on offense. They return Chaz Surratt. Is that how you pronounce his last name?
I believe. I'm not exactly sure, but I'll give you it.
One of the craziest names in football. But their running back core comes back too, and Michael Carter, Jordan Brown, these guys all pretty good. I was looking down at my stats and I had Surratt there and I knew he wasn't a running quarterback. So I got a little confused for the pause. But I mean, these guys offensively should be sound enough. Their defense is still pretty good though. I think they're going to have an interesting time defending some of their teams. Their linebacking core is suspect, but the rest of it's pretty solid.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, you start the season on the road at Cal, at East Carolina. Then you host the self-proclaimed national champs, UCF, as your first home game. So who knows? Maybe they're still undefeated at that point, and turns into one hell of a game. But we mentioned that game against Miami at the end of September, and I think that's going to be another can't-miss game and could really change the landscape of the ACC as it goes forward.
Yeah. One thing I would tell you is this, there were clearly, to me, there were tiers in the Atlantic Division.
Sure.
When I look at the Coastal Division, I don't see tiers. I see Miami and then a bunch of crap. Not crap. Okay, let me. That came out wrong. That was rude.
Well, like when an ESPN analyst ranks quarterbacks, there's elite, there's whatever they call the next level, and so on and so forth.
To me, there's. I don't want to use the word crap because one man's trash is another man's treasure. There are teams here that are like simmering at potentially being good. I am not as high on UNC as you are. There's to me the program that I'm a little higher on is Duke.
Sure, absolutely.
I think Daniel Jones is an excellent quarterback. We know they've had some success recently, and they actually have a pretty good secondary, which in college football, most secondaries are not pretty good. So for various reasons. Now, they do have to visit Miami and Clemson. So I think there's 2 losses right there. I think they find their way to slip into that number 2 spot, but I'm almost flipping a coin because it just depends on a couple of these guys. I just trust Radcliffe and that program a little bit more than I do UNC and some of the turmoil they've had.
For sure.
There, but the turmoil they've had makes me a little nervous.
No, that's a really good point because Duke also has a really good linebacking core. They return all of their linebackers. They were their leading tacklers, as you might expect from linebackers. But I mean, these guys also force turnovers as well. They have interceptions. They have forced fumbles. So I mean, these guys, their defense, you hit the nail right on the head, is solid. David Cutcliffe doing a huge job of that program. I didn't realize he was already at double digits with them, but nonetheless, he's 59-67 in his career with the Blue Devils, but he's made, aside from 2016, he's made a ton of bowl games, and I think he can continue that going. I mean, this was a Duke team that I think it was 11 years ago had like close to a 20-game losing streak going, and now they're at this point. So, I mean, we'll see how they go. I know that they have some new guys at tailback with Britton Brown, sophomore running back, so we'll see how he does. He comes as their returning leading rusher with 701 yards last year. So if he can get it going too, establish himself as a pretty good player, because Duke still, they get a little more of that run the ball, throw the ball, a little more in your face offense, almost like a Big Ten team.
Yeah.
We'll see how they do. I like that though. They're my number 3.
Okay. Yeah. So the third one I'm really struggling with because like it's not as high at UNC, but if you sleep on Virginia Tech, teams slept on that team for years. People slept on that team for years. Josh Jackson is a sophomore, and he has all the talent to be really, really good. Their defense is going to struggle. But they've got Bud Foster, who's been there forever as their D coordinator. He might be able to figure it out. And the schedule isn't too harsh for them. I have concerns, don't get me wrong. I like them in that 3rd position. You can't forget, great programs figure it out. And we know how good Beamer was for years, so you expected to step back. They start off the year at FSU. That's probably going to be a tough game. Although Jackson could go off. They got Notre Dame.
I'm not as down on their defense either as you are. I think that game's going to be a good test for them and seeing how they do. I think they have a pretty good up front 4. Their linebackers might be a little shaky. Really what you want to see with DeAndre Francois and how back A is he, but B, how that front 4 from Virginia Tech holds him. And if DeAndre Francois gets going and forces them to have to contain him and the pass and gets them a little tied up. He's just looking at these guys. They're returning 3 of their 4 guys, junior, senior, and the other guy that's expected to start at the end is a junior. So these are experienced guys. So we'll see how they do. But I think you're right that the defense could struggle if they don't get on the right foot.
Yeah, no, definitely. I just think the program is too good not to be okay this year. But Now I would slot UNC in there next at that 4th spot.
Oh, you're 4. Yeah,
I like Virginia Tech at 3. Who do you have at 5?
5? Yeah, this is where we start getting into that next tier, to use your example. I'm gonna go with Georgia Tech. It's between that and Pitt for me, and I think Virginia is the last. But it's sort of damned if you do, damned if you don't, because Georgia Tech is a better offense than Pitt does, but Pitt has a much better defense.
Right.
So, I mean, I think I could even call them T5, just because basically it's not mirror image, but it's still, ooh, if you're looking at it. So I'm going to go with Georgia Tech simply just on the fact that they return a lot of players on offense. They should have a better offense and not as bad of a defense as Pitt's offense is going to be, if that makes sense.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'll give it. I'm going to give it to Georgia Tech because of Paul Johnson being there. It's also, when you play, most teams, I know the ACC is a little more used to it, but when you're playing a team that runs the triple offense, maybe a little bit difficult to figure out. They're always a little bit of a better team than you give them credit for. They always seem to have a couple talent-wise. They do play.
They went to the Orange Bowl. They were much better than they were supposed to be.
Right. Yeah. Now they do play. They have a tough second game of the year at USF, South Florida. Might be an early loss for them right away. They're at Pitt. They go to Clemson. They play Clemson at home in week 4. They don't have a lot of time to prep for that big time game right there. That's going to be a trouble spot for them. And obviously they end the year at Georgia. That game, they may not. That may be their bowl eligible game. They have to win, and I doubt they're going to take the Bulldogs this year with the talent they have. So I'm going to slot them in at 5 because Pittsburgh plays Penn State, UCF, and Notre Dame, and they're at UCF and Notre Dame.
Yep.
They've got a couple decent guys, and the defense is returning pretty much everyone. But I just think there's not a lot of buzz and talent there for me.
Yeah, it's one of those again where even though they return their running back, they return their fullback. Shout out to them for using a fullback still. A couple guys on the offensive line, but that's really about it. And their defense should be pretty good. A lot of those guys are returning, but it might be a long year. And like you said, they play Penn State and what's becoming a yearly series again, which is cool to see. But got to go to Notre Dame. You got to go to Miami. You got to go to UCF, to North Carolina. I mean, it's going to be tough, man. A good defense is only, so good. And on the road at loud places like that, that's going to be tough.
Yeah, no, definitely. And then I think we can all agree the last spot here is definitely Virginia.
Yeah. Kind of a bummer to see because they'd looked like they were starting to put something together last year, even with Bronco Mendenhall at coach. Yeah. And, I mean, it's just really not clicking. He's had a tough run at it as their coach. And, yeah, I don't know. I don't know how you fix the Cavaliers.
Yeah. I mean, they're not a football program. Now, they're better at basketball.
They used to be, though.
Well, they started 5-1 last year. And then they went 1-7 and they lost 49-7 in their bowl game. I mean, oh my God. So that is just a brutal end of the season for them.
49-7 where they come in as a 1-point dog. Like you're supposed to make it a game.
Right. Yep. And I mean they don't necessarily have a difficult schedule. I mean, outside of the ACC, but they're just it's just going to be brutal, I think, for them. They go at Indiana in week 2. They might lose. You definitely got to be concerned. They do miss Clemson, by the way, this year. So there's a plus for them.
There's a plus, yeah.
Yep. And Miami is at home. So if you're going to upset Special, there's a shot. I just think it's definitely a rebuilding year for Bronco. He almost seems like he needs to just completely turn the page here a little bit.
No, I would agree with that. You need to figure out some way to rebuild it. I mean, you return so many guys, and I guess that's good, but convince some guys what you were able to do when you were at BYU and convince them that now we're in a power conference, and if you come be my guys, then we can start to make some waves, especially in the Coastal Division. It's a division that really, aside from Miami, it isn't an established program that year after year turns in excellent seasons and excellent talent.
Yeah, no, definitely.
But yeah, so that wraps up the team by team. Let's do some predictions. Pick who we think that are going to win. We both picked Clemson, and then we both picked Miami. So we're going to have a rematch, it sounds like.
In the ACC championship. I 100% couldn't agree more.
Yeah. Yeah, which, I want to think it's going to be a closer game this year, but that Clemson team is just going to be off the chain, quite literally off the turnover chain, good this season. And I think it might be, unfortunately, another snooze of an ACC championship. Although I'd love to see Miami, get something going and make it an exciting game.
Yeah, but I'm with you. I think it's a pretty easy pick here. It's Clemson all the way. and they're really good.
Yeah, they're going to be really good.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough one, I think, for anybody else to compete. Nothing against Miami. I think they're a year or two away. And, you expect Clemson to kind of take a shuffle back. I have Clemson making the playoff. I think they run the table completely. They don't have that big out-of-conference game they have to be scared of. So I'm with them 100% to run the table this year. I don't think there's a Heisman hopeful in this conference this year.
I don't think so.
No, I don't. I really don't.
You think A.J. Dillon could sneak in there?
Maybe, but here's the problem. He's going to be
he's the BC running back,
right? I know. So Kim and Cam Akers in Florida State are both really good.
Yeah.
My concern is, in this case, is you've got other really great running backs out there, including Bryce Love, and there's some really good quarterbacks like Will Grier, who we'll talk about later as well in a different podcast, but. I don't think they sneak in there. And I also don't think, look, even if they sneak in there, they better be having a good year. It's going to be tough to win the Heisman without having a really good year around you.
Sure. No, I totally agree. I think it'll be really close in how it all finishes out. But unfortunately, with the quarterback talent that's out there and really just a lot of other excellent running back talent, you might see Dillon sneak in as like a fifth guy because they invite more finalists now than just the three. Sometimes they do. So maybe if it's close enough or he's a semifinalist, but yeah, I think you're right. It's tough to think of anyone in the conference as a serious Heisman contender.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. I think they're small Americans.
For sure.
I think Dillon has a chance to be an All-American. I think that 2 or 3 of those Clemson guys will be All-Americans.
Yeah, the Clemson defensive line, you might even just pick them all.
No, absolutely, 100%.
But yeah.
So we'll see what happens.
And then Clemson in the playoffs, what do you think, 1 or 2 seed?
2.
2 behind Bama?
Well, you know what? I guess the question is, if I think they're going to run the table, and they're coming in ranked so high, is there another team that is going to run the table in another major conference? When Bama, while as good as Bama is, they're going to have a tough schedule, and they have some things they have to get over. So I don't know. So we'll figure it out.
Yeah, so we will see with that. It's going to be close though. Crazily enough, no 1 seed has ever won the college football playoff.
That I had no idea. That really?
Yep, no 1 seed. Both of Alabama's, they weren't the number 1 seed. It was Clemson.
Jeez, that actually shocks me. By the way, just since we're talking about it, I don't think I will be picking them to win. So
Clemson to win the national championship?
No, I don't.
Yeah. No, I don't think so either. I think Alabama's going to be pretty good, but we will cover them in another pod, and I think that's going to wrap it up for us with the ACC. If you haven't already yet, listen to the Pac-12 podcast. We're about to record it, but we're dropping them both at the same time. So if you've already listened to it, you have heard whatever crazy predictions we made. We don't even know it yet, so you're doing a little bit of time traveling. But we're going to get over to that. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure to follow us on all the different social medias, Thunder BLG, Thunderbog Sports, and Matt D. Steph on both Instagram and Facebook. Is that what's your
Mm-hmm.
Jordo9 on both Instagram and Facebook for me. And that's going to wrap it up. We will see you guys next time. Have a great weekend, everybody. Enjoy. All right, so now let's pause. I'm going to refill my beer and take a piss, and then we'll go Pac-12.
I'll get my second beer, too. I'll be right back. All right.
Can you?
22 to 4?
Is it really? I didn't see it was 22. Can you heat up a bag of rice and the ground turkey for me and just mix them together? Cool, thank you.
Scotty Jetpacks and Roman Quinn both pitched.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Scotty Jetpacks, yay!
Whew. Did you hear that from Emily?
Yeah, Scotty Jetpacks and Roman Quinn pitched.
Yeah.
I love Scotty Jetpacks. I love that nickname. Anyway.
All right. Let me turn my pages to the Pac-12. This is going to be fun. This is going to be a good one, I think. Because there's definitely a lot of good shit to talk about with them. All right. I am here, and I will intro in 3, 2, 1, and we are live. Welcome to this edition of the Funvee Tailgate presented by ThunderblogSports.com college football previews. I, of course, am Jordy Cannell, the G-Man. With me, as always, is my man coming all the way from Malvern, PA, Matty D.
Yo, brother. Yo, brother.
What's going on?
Well, we've talked about it a little bit. I'm just ready for football to begin.
I am too. Yeah, it's August. Starting to cut the grass, starting to see some high school teams going back. If this sounds familiar, you probably just listened to the ACC podcast we just recorded. We're dropping them both at the same time, though. We want to try something different, do some shorter, do the preview shorter rather than combine them. So if you're listening to this first, you can hear the awesome intro that we did when you listen to the ACC. And if you don't like the ACC, you don't have to listen to it. So it's America. We're leaving free will up to everybody.
Say that again. I'm sorry. Say that one more time.
And Matt chooses not to listen. I said it's free. It's America. We're leaving free will up to each and every individual.
Oh well, that's true. That's why we live in this great country.
Yeah, exactly.
And here's the thing: free will. But when it comes to football,
there's nothing more ingrained into the American fall Saturday than college football.
Yeah, it's 22. It's 22. It's 22 guys that have to have the same will on the football field. Okay. So that we can win. So yeah, definitely.
I can't wait to sit in a bar for like 10 hours just watching football on a Saturday. Like that first Saturday, Labor Day weekend, and we're going to be hanging out. But I think we should try to get together for it because I know we're hanging out that Sunday.
Yeah.
But that first weekend is just nonstop football. It is so much fun. But so we're covering the Pac-12 in this podcast. Like I mentioned, we're doing each conference, depending on 2 that we might have a guest for. So those might be still one podcast, but we're doing them instead of doing back-to-back as a full hour plus. We're doing these dropped at the same time. It's about a half hour, 40 minutes. So just a little different. If you like it, let us know in the comments. Doing the Pac-12, dropping it at the same time as the ACC. And I'm really excited. I think the Pac-12 is going to be a ton of fun to watch this year, Matt.
I definitely think so too. I think they're one of the most fascinating divisions every year every year in football. They generate way better players, and because of where they're located, because they're on the West Coast, we miss a lot of their games, which I think is a shame.
Yeah.
There's just a ton, I'm gonna be honest, there's a ton of really good teams in the Pac-12, in my opinion. I mean, teams that you wouldn't want to play. It's fascinating conference. This year is going to be really interesting as well, I think, too. There's traditional powerhouses. There's up-and-comers all over the map.
Oh, yeah. There absolutely are. And it's gonna be great to see if we're reaching a point where some of the up-and-comers are starting to eclipse those established teams with some veteran leadership on them. So this is, I think, is going to be one of the more exciting years out of the Pac-12, and it's not going to be something where in the past, where the Pac-12 has been left out of the college football playoff, it's been pretty obvious. I think and we'll get to this at the end of the show, but I think this is going to be a really compelling year where even if teams start to beat up on each other, that you're going to see a lot of teams in high-profile bowl games by the end of the year.
No, definitely. And you know what? Like, they continue to attract star power. So, the name I'll start with is Chip Kelly's arrival. So we'll get to every team. I don't want to just jump on there right away. But this conference, as we've got a lot to talk about, we've got a lot to review, and not a ton amount of time. But where do we want to start? Which division here?
Let's start with the North.
Okay.
Which might be the better division. We can debate that, but I think it might be.
I would say it's the better top. It's got the better teams.
Yeah, exactly. Better top teams. 2 or 3 best teams in the division. I would definitely tell you that. Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
I would argue we'll get to their lower half. I think they might have a little bit of weaker at the bottom. Yeah.
Yeah. We'll start in the North Division, and I think number 1 is pretty simple with Washington. I don't know if you agree, but I think with returning Jake Browning, who has turned in awesome seasons for the past 2 years, and he's finally a senior. It felt like he's been a senior every single year.
Right.
They returned Myles Gaskin, their running back,
That's true.
Who needs 1,300 yards last year.
He gets overshadowed by some other running backs, like Ronald Jones and another guy that's still in the conference. We'll get to.
He rushed for over 6 yards a carry last year, man.
He's a really good running back. Now
he's a fucking stud.
Now, some of that is because of the system and how good they are. But no, I completely agree with you there 100%.
But then the best part of this, they returned 9 players on defense.
Yeah, and this is a defense that, when you think of the Pac-12, you don't normally think of defense. They're really good.
Yeah, they're really fucking good. I mean, these guys all across the board, they all help out with tackling. They all help force turnovers. And I mean, like you said, you don't normally think of defense in the Pac-12, the way that the systems go, allow a little more yards here and there. It's not like the Big 12 where it's just offensive university left and right. But I mean, these guys, I think they're going to be pretty good. Not as good as a couple other defenses we've talked about in other conferences, but I think these guys are going to be pretty solid. I mean, you got to look out for their entire basically front 7. That's, I think, all but 1 are returning players from last year.
Yeah.
And these guys are leading tacklers. Again, they're forcing sacks or forcing fumbles. They're going to be a tough out. They're going to be a really hard out with a team that we're going to cover in a second with an awesome Heisman favorite running back. They're going to be tough against good quarterback teams with interesting offensives. I mean, they play all these different teams this year, some of them on the road, some of them at home. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, well, first and foremost here, they are, but here's the one thing you have to know. They open the year with a really fun game, don't they?
Yeah.
Auburn visits Washington.
No, it's in Atlanta. It's a neutral site game.
Right. I apologize. I did know that, but it's in Atlanta. But what a fun.
That's going to be a great game.
Right? I mean, and this is why I love great non-conference games. They get matchups that you never really expect, and Washington projects to be like the 4th best team in the country this year. And even if they lose to Auburn, it's not over. But boy, they beat Auburn, and you're looking at a potential, playoff pretty quick. Once again, hard Pac-12 this year, but they do get Stanford at home. I'm just excited.
They got to go to Utah, which concerns me in week 3.
They do and I think Utah is going to surprise a lot of people.
I think so too.
Yeah. Okay. I'm glad we're on the same page there. I do. I think Utah, a little bit of a scary team to an extent. This is a team that's been really good, by the way, for the past how many years? It seems like
Washington or Utah?
Utah. It's like they're better than you think they are pretty consistently. I don't know if Utah has any superstars per se, like maybe an Arizona does, which we'll get to, but they're a really good football team that is going to put up an early test for Washington. Here's my concern. Let's say Washington loses to Auburn. Okay. They have a cupcake week 2, North Dakota. Wait, North Dakota. No. Yeah. Okay.
No, not North Dakota State. UND.
I know. I had to look twice. Then they go to Utah. They theoretically, if they're still down on themselves about Auburn, they could be 1-2 to start the year, and that'll pretty much crash their.
Yeah, that's the tough thing is that we haven't seen a 2-loss team get in yet. We've seen multiple teams from the same conference, but not a 2-loss team. I think that's what the committee fears the most.
No, definitely. And here's the thing. I mean, let's say they lost Auburn and Utah and then ran the table. I could still see them getting in because if they have 2 early losses, assuming Utah's at all good and Auburn lives up to expectations.
I think they need to beat Utah in the Pac-12 championship game.
I would definitely agree that if they lose to Utah,
if they play USC or Arizona, I don't think that happens.
Yeah, but it's always possible. It's always possible. But I definitely think they're the class of the division. I don't think they're head and shoulders better though than their other. My number 2 may be different for you, but I have the Stanford Cardinal locked in at 2, and I think
I'm on the same page, and that's why I thought maybe you might have them 1 because I know you're a big fan of them.
I am a big fan of them. Bryce Love is a Heisman candidate. They've got a tight end in Caden Smith who has a potential to be really good. They've got a number of decent guys offensively. I don't love them defensively per se. I still think they're a really good football team, though.
Yeah, they lost a lot of their top defensive players, so it's going to be a lot of question marks coming in, and we probably should get an idea early.
Yeah.
But you mentioned Love, and I think he is going to have a nice campaign, hopefully better than the Christian McCaffrey follow-up, which
right.
I read that there have been in the last 10 years, there have been 2 players to come in second in the Heisman voting, and in the next season, they weren't even a finalist. One's McCaffrey, who was injured a number of times 2 years ago. The other was Andrew Luck, who was still a highly touted prospect, came back for his senior year after everybody thought he was going to go out to Jim Harbaugh at the 49ers. But I think Love is going to have himself an awesome year. They play San Diego State, another running back university. Then they play USC, which I love that game. That game is always fun to watch.
Mm-hmm.
And it's at Stanford, which USC never travels north very well. One of those games that they travel north is always seems like when they slip up. No matter if it's the John David Booty, Matt Leinart, Jesus, or late 2000s teams, or this resurgence of USC, they never travel north. And then obviously in between, they were a mess all over the place with Lane Kiffin and all those guys. But that's going to be a ton of fun to watch. It's definitely probably going to be, if not the ESPN game of the week, it's going to be on ESPN2, on Fox, wherever, because I know they love the Pac-12.
Yeah.
But it's going to be on national television, and you should be sitting either on your couch or at a bar watching that game because you're going to see a lot of high-level talent facing off against one another, and it's going to be an electrifying football game.
No, I agree. I think the one thing this is why I was a little less – that's why I hesitated to jump Stanford all the way up to the very top with Washington. You talked about USC week 2. San Diego State, you can't sleep on them in the first week. They go here's the stretch there. They go at Oregon, at Notre Dame. That's a big travel.
Tough.
Come right back, play Utah at home, but they're coming right back from Notre Dame. And then they have to travel to Washington, and they end the year at Cal and at UCLA. So I have 2 concerns.
3 of their last 4 games on the road.
Right. No. They get Oregon State at home.
No, I said 3 of their last 4. So Washington, Oregon State at home, then away.
The problem I have is end of the year, Chip Kelly, if his system is rolling by the end of that year, at UCLA could be a daunting game for a team that might have an opportunity to make a surprise run at the college football. No one is surprised that they're good, but they'd be surprised if they got to the playoff. But it could come down to that game, and that would somewhat concern me. The other problem is when you're going to put a lot of your eggs in the basket of Bryce Love, who I absolutely love. He's not a big guy. He's had injury concerns.
Yeah.
If he's getting 30 carries a game, by the time you get to those late games on the road, how is his body going to be holding up? You can't afford to lose him. He seems to be most of your offense. So, that's a concern. The hope is they can find some games to kind of ease his carry. But if he's going after a Heisman, he's not going to want to come off the field. And I would understand why. So I just have a couple little concerns here or there about him this year. But
do you think they should try to run some RPOs or what with KJ Costello, their quarterback, because he can run a little bit to try to get a little bit of pressure off of him.
Yeah, KJ Costello could be a guy that does that surprises people to me.
Okay.
He was pretty good last year, I would say. He's up and coming. He's young. And this is a team, by the way, this team always has a good defense, always has good tight ends and good running backs. It's Andrew Luck, obviously, was probably their best player, but he's got to be healthy. Keller Chris is transferred to Tennessee. So passing game is a concern. And if they get behind in a game, can they come all the way back? But defense is going to be good. I think the defense is going to be better than we expect it to be. It normally is.
Sure.
Yeah.
No, I mean, they're definitely going to be a lot of fun to watch. I think if they can pull off an upset, if it was at home, the Washington game, I'd think it'd be a lot of fun to watch. But I think at Washington, especially if they're rolling, no matter how Washington's first couple of games go, if they're rolling at that point of the season, they could start to try to play spoiler to Stanford if Stanford jumps ahead of them. But we'll see how it all goes for them. At number 3 in the division, I got the Oregon Ducks. I think that's pretty clear. Like you said, a very good top-heavy division. But I think with Oregon right there, they got some pretty solid offense and a pretty solid defense, too. I shouldn't sleep on their defense. But they're returning 7 starters on each side. They start off with a very, very easy schedule before they have to play Stanford. So they could be clicking on all levels. They host Bowling Green, they host Portland State, then they host San Diego State, and then they host Stanford. So for their first 4 games, they don't even have to leave the state of Oregon. Then they go play at Cal. Yeah. And then early bye week for them, October 6th bye week. But then they, for their last 7 games, are on the road. And it could be interesting. I mean, the nice thing is that they host their former coach when USC plays them on November 3rd. So it could be an emotional game for Chip Kelly, which I think also is a big part of the Stanford game for him. He used to always either demolish Stanford or Stanford would play spoiler to him. So I think he wants to win that game. He'll definitely want to win this game against Oregon at Oregon in Eugene. But talking a little bit more about the Ducks themselves, they return Justin Hibbard, their quarterback who tossed for almost 2,000 yards last year. They don't return Royce Freeman, who has moved up to the NFL. He is your guy on the Broncos, right?
Yeah, I would say that he was vastly underrated, and he's a really good player.
Yeah,
right.
Or Corey Benoit. He had a pretty good season too.
That's true.
But they have now starting, who isn't a starter, but he's still got a good amount of reps. They have Troy Brooks-James, who got almost 500 yards. They had a pretty balanced offense last year in terms of giving guys a good amount of touches, and that's why Freeman's numbers weren't as high as you would normally see out of a feature back, a guy that makes it up to the NFL for a quality team and everything. But I mean, I think their defense is going to be really good. I think they definitely improve on the 7-6 record from last season.
Yeah, I do too. It's all about Herbert's health. If he's healthy, this team's great. If he's unhealthy, they might struggle. If Herbert gets hurt, he's a pro prospect. I mean, they're talking about a potential first-round pick. And I'm with you, though. It really comes down, it's 3 weeks in a row. Oh, sorry, they have the bye week there, but it's Stanford at Cal, Washington. If they win those 3 games, there's a shot at a team going undefeated here and surprising everybody. I don't think they will, but it's really, to me, it's those 3 games.
I would even include at Arizona.
I mean, so here's what you are at Arizona is not we got to make sure we pay attention to a guy like Khalil Tate, who's a Heisman a candidate, by the way. If you don't know him, you need to look.
We'll get to Khalil Tate, though.
Khalil Tate, he's basically a running back at wide receiver, at quarterback. The guy is a good football player, and he's a great football player. And the concern you have with him is he's one of those guys that one of those games where he just goes off and beats a team they quote unquote shouldn't win.
Yeah. But we'll get to him when we get to Arizona.
There. This Pac-12 got a bunch of really good pedigreed college coaches, Sumlin and Kelly. They also got Tony Dungy, who I'm not sure is going to be that great, but he's still there. There's some decent names that have. I'm sorry, Tony Dungy, Herm Edwards. Excuse me. Wow, very very wrong on me.
It's all good. It's all good. Former
analysts. Those are three big names, and Chip Kelly may have not had the success you expected him to have in the NFL, although you could argue he did. This guy was really good in college. Really, really good. So there's going to be a lot of excitement around that program. My point is there's just a lot of decent players, a lot of decent coaches and decent players in the Pac-12 that are gaining strength here. I don't think Oregon has any chance of going undefeated, but you never know.
Yeah, I mean, there are shocks left and right. I mean, Western Michigan nearly did it a couple years ago. Washington even they went on a run themselves in that Colorado team in that same season.
Right.
Let's keep it rolling. I think who do you have for Cal?
I'm going to take Cal here.
Yeah, it's kind of a yeah.
This is where I think you start to see a drop. The defense is pretty good here, by the way. Cornerbacks are good. Linebackers are good. There's nothing offensively. That's my concern with Cal. They've got Vic Wharton at wide receiver, who I love a lot, but you've got to have somebody throwing him the ball. So I think they're solidly locked in at 4 because I think the two teams below them are not good. But we'll get there. But it's going to be a tough one in my mind at least.
I mean, the nice thing is that they have a lot of home games against top caliber teams in the conference, like we mentioned Washington, so they can try to play spoiler. It's probably their best bet there.
Yeah, I think here's the thing. I actually thought that Washington State, who we're talking about next, I would assume, they've been steadily getting better every year, but Mike Leach's issues off the field with players and himself, they're starting to catch up with him here a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, they don't return a lot of players either, which concerns me.
Yeah.
And they shouldn't be ranked very high with a lot of the players that they are returning and a lot of the inexperiences that they have.
Yeah. And their they're overhauling their entire offense. Now, Mike Leach is known for making something out of nothing. So,
that's true. That's very true.
I do have to say that. I don't want to totally poo-poo them here 100%. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, they're better than Oregon State.
That's
right?
pretty easy to go with.
Yeah.
Oregon State not really returned. Or actually, they returned a good amount. But I mean, they have a new coach in Jonathan Smith, who's never had any head coach experience on any level. He was a quarterback in college, played in the early 2000s. I mean, I'd love to say that they're going to give Ohio State a run for their money in week 1, but they're not.
They're not.
It's going to be a rollover of a game for the Buckeyes.
Right. No, definitely. Yeah. And I would tell you that I actually don't hate his hire though, because they probably think, hey, look, this guy will get in here and build a program over the next 5 to 10 years. That's what you think of when you're at the bottom. Trust, hey, TTP, trust the process and see what happens. I think but I'm okay with them taking him and see if they can build something out of what is literally almost nothing. Getting paid money to play Ohio State, I'm sure, but that's going to be a rough start to his coaching career.
They also have one of the hardest schedules in college football because of how bad they are and how good of how good of their conference schedule is, and because they play Ohio State. So good on them. You make something out of nothing, and maybe you get a nice little bowl invite. But that's going to take a lot of things to happen. Yeah,
no, I agree. I think it's going to be a tough one for him.
South Division.
That's really the North. I think, like we talked about, I would say that real quick, I think the North, the top couple teams are really good. But I don't know if they have the same depth as the South.
No, I would totally agree. I think you might have the opportunity for a couple backdoor covers on the betting end, but yeah, in terms of the results, they're going to be pretty straightforward. But let's move to the South Division. I think it's going to be pretty well-rounded, as I would think. USC is up there. They return a number of good players. But Matt, I'm actually going to go with Arizona for my pick to win the division as number 1. Yeah, I'm trusting in Khalil Tate. You talked about him before, which is why I kept trying to be like, hold on.
Sorry.
really like this Wildcat team. They host USC. They have to go to UCLA, but they have to go to Utah too, which concerns me. Utah is the only other team that I'm really concerned about on their schedule.
Okay.
So they play BYU. They have to go to Houston, which might be tough. But all their other road games, Washington State's going to be fairly easy. UCLA is a wild card, and we're going to talk about them in a bit. But I really like Khalil Tate. I really like what I'm reading about with JJ Taylor, their sophomore running back who's starting out. Their wide receiving core is fantastic. And I think their defense is going to be pretty solid once again. They return 9 starters. They should have a number of guys, especially in that linebacking core, that really make a big impact there.
No, I mean, first of all, I agree that there's a ton of talent. And Kevin, someone walks in with a pedigree. I know he didn't have great years last few years, but with a pedigree.
Yeah. That's the one thing against him is that Kevin Sumlin's a first-year coach for them.
How about this? But yeah, he's not a first-year coach because he's got plenty of talent.
First year with the program.
Way more high-pressured environment. They do go week 2 at Houston, which will be fun. If you want to watch a really good matchup, watch Ed Oliver, the Houston defensive tackle, a top 5 prospect in the NFL right now, go up against Khalil Tate. That's going to be a fun thing to watch, potentially. My concern is on both the defensive and offensive lines. They don't really have a set starting 5 offensively, which concerns you a little bit, even if you spread them out. And I don't know if they have a great defensive line. So they can keep up in a shootout if their defense isn't playing great. But if they can't protect Tate at all, I'm a little hesitant there. And they've got some tough matchups. This being said, though, this is the year to get to USC. It's also the year because of what we think will be the rise of UCLA. So you better hope this is a good year for Arizona. I don't have them at 1, but I think you have a really strong pick and an argument there, and I like it.
Who do you got number 1 then?
I'm going to go with USC. I still think there's a lot of talent there.
Yeah.
So I'm going to jump on that. They're still really good football. They've got tons of talent all over the place. The defense is going to be really good.
That defense is going to be very solid.
They've got 3 guys, Porter Gustin, Cameron Smith, Christian Rector on the defensive line who look awesome. Now, it looks like JT Daniels is going to start as a true freshman. He should be a high school senior this year, and he's coming in at Sam Darnold. So I'm assuming that they can figure out how to help him. And that the hype is real. That's why I'm taking them to win the division. I don't think they win the conference, but I think they win the division. I think they're the best team in the division still. There's so much talent at USC, as you would expect with how storied that program is.
Sure.
They do go at Stanford week 2. It could be a loss. And they go
That's
to Texas the next week. So that early stretch there is really going to test them.
Yeah, at Stanford, at Texas, at Arizona, at Utah are your first 4 away games. At Oregon State should be a win. And then you play at UCLA. And I mean, UCLA, they're going to be better than UCLA, but that's not a game to sleep on for them.
No, at UCLA and then Notre Dame visiting, as you expect. That's an early tough start there, though. I would agree. The start is early and the end is early.
Yeah.
So it's going to be really interesting. I just think there's enough talent there that they're going to do it. I would tell you that I will go. I don't have Arizona at 2. I've got Utah at 2.
Okay. Yeah, Utah is my number 2. I have USC number 3. So we flip flop.
Okay.
But let's talk Utah. The Utes are going to be solid, and they're always a tough out at home.
Yeah, that's the thing. There are always there's always a team in every conference that you think about that always puts up a really good fight every year. You should expect them to, and they don't. I think of Utah. I think of a Kansas State in the Big 12. Everyone knows Wisconsin is good, but they don't always get the credit that's due. But they're a little bit too highly ranked for my. But Tyler Huntley, a quarterback. He's got Zach Moss in the backfield. They have a really good kicker, which sounds strange. But in college, that's a huge deal.
It is a big deal in college.
Right. Now, I don't know how great their defense is going to be, but they always seem to figure out a way to get some players in the field that at least trip you up. I like them as that Probably, I don't think they'll be number one, and I would expect that Arizona or a surprise UCLA to jump them for this first spot. But I think they could slot themselves in as a number two with a decent bowl game.
Okay.
By the way, his coach Whittingham is 10-1 in bowl games. Did you know that?
I did know that. Before they joined the Pac-12, Utah had a very, very solid run of winning 10 games or more.
Now, they go right away. Week 3, Washington visits them. We talked about that before. Could be a potential upset for them. They do have to visit
at Stanford is tough.
Right. And they go at Stanford, and then they go Zona UCLA at Zona USC at UCLA. That'll be tough. But if they could figure out a way to come out of there with 2 losses, you're looking at a really good year, a really good team for this, a really good year for this team.
Yep. For sure. All right. So do you have Arizona 3?
I have Arizona at 3. And by the way, I'm going to put them at 3, but I'm battling myself with UCLA because I just have expectations of Chip even in year 1. But I'll take Arizona at 3. If you don't have Tate on
UCLA at 4,
I think I have UCLA very much so locked in at 4. I think that's there's a clear middle pack here with UCLA, Arizona, Utah to me. There's a clear middle grouping there in my mind.
Okay.
Yep.
By the way, jump into UCLA though. I don't have them at 4, but let's jump into them.
Yeah. UCLA, that is?
Yeah, we'll go with your 4. I have Colorado at 4, so we'll jump into them after we go into UCLA.
And we'll talk about UCLA real quick. What I would tell you is I'm also not sleeping on Colorado or Arizona State. I think both of those programs.
Yeah, I think all 3 of them could jump out.
Exactly, and that's what really interests me to quite a bit. There are players at UCLA. They weren't a bad team. They just weren't good enough. They weren't elite for what you're looking for. UCLA tries to, wrestle above their weight quite a bit. So, we'll see what happens. But I just feel like Chip Kelly has a way to make stuff out of nothing. He did that a little bit with the Eagles. I mean, I don't know. I have a feeling that he figures out to be a little bit okay. The defense is going to struggle, but I just think he figures it out offensively, and they score points with his system. I mean, look, nothing against. We know I love Nick Foles, but Nick Foles and DeMarco Murray didn't necessarily make sense in the spread offense backfield that they were running, and yet he had great success with them. I think he figures out a way to make something happen.
Yeah, I mean, I actually think their defense is going to be pretty solid, but I agree with you. Their offense, if it comes out rolling, these guys could be on a very high trajectory, especially comparatively to what a lot of people think they're going to do. That's why I have them 5. I just have a lot of question marks around the offense. I do like their defense a lot, though, so I think that they can edge out Arizona State for the 6. But I think Colorado, and we'll get to them in a second, I just think they have a little more built-in talent where they're at and a little more experience to make a more of a run for that 4 spot.
And I would also tell you that UCLA, they visit Oklahoma week 2.
That's true.
It's probably a loss.
Yeah, probably.
But I think if you're every other team in the Pac-12, you're sitting there going, okay, how long do we have until this team gets good? That, they're going to be quick. They're going to be fast. They've got players. Wilton Spate, by the way, may start there. This is a guy who has former Michigan guy, has some experience. You just never know with guys like that. I could see him figuring it out. So, I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but they better be people better be ready, I guess, is how I would state it.
Yeah. No. That's a good point. I mean, going forward, the program trajectory is pointed very much onward and upward. So it'll be exciting to see. But like I mentioned, I have Colorado at number 4. I think just where they're at, I think they're returning a number of guys, especially on defense, that should help out. Their offense could be a little suspect, but I think with a bit of establishment, a couple years removed from that run, that they can certainly be good. The one thing that concerns me is their interior on both sides of the ball. So if they aren't up to snuff, they will get eaten alive.
Okay,
so I think there definitely is a divide between the top 3 in the division and the bottom 3. And I just think Colorado is the best of those bottom 3. But I mean, I also like their schedule a lot. They host Colorado State, or no, that's neutral site game. But aside from going to Nebraska and USC, Washington, and Arizona, their home schedule is pretty good, and they could play spoiler for a couple different teams like UCLA, like Arizona State, which part of why I ranked them ahead. But Utah, they play late in the season. They could try to upset them. It's going to be fun seeing how the Buffaloes do.
I definitely agree. What I would say is they have a real. Steven Montez could arguably be the best quarterback in the Pac-12. They've got a really good linebacking group there. They don't have a ton of skill position players in a division, in a conference that may require you to score a little bit. We've seen that usually with the Pac-12.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I mean, but here's the thing: that program has been Colorado. A couple years ago, they got ranked real high, but they're a good team and they're a good group. I like them. I have them slotted at 5. I like them at 5, but they're a team that could upset you by accident almost. Just because they have some talent there,
especially at home. They're very good at home.
Right. So we'll see what happens. But once again, there's not a lot of teams you want to play in the Pac-12. I wouldn't want to play Colorado. I guess that's how I look at it. I wouldn't want to play a lot of these teams. Yeah. So I think that means we both have the same team at the bottom.
Yeah, Arizona State, and it's nothing against Herm Edwards, really. It's just, I mean, they even have a good offense coming back. I just think it's going to be tough for them climbing out of where they've been the last couple of years.
Yeah. 5-10 years ago, you were like, wow, this is okay.
They made a bowl game last year, too. We shouldn't doubt them that much, but I just think it's tough to.
Yeah, I would.
Every other team, it seems like, is moving forward, and they kind of stayed in neutral with getting Herm Edwards and all of that, comparatively to what their program is going to do.
There's definitely a little bit of buzz there, I would say. What I would also tell you is this: they might have the best wide receiving core that you don't even know about in the country, at least in the conference. It's Harry. His first name is N''Keel. So Nikhil, Harry, Kyle Williams are excellent. Manny Wilkins is pretty good as a
Kyle Williams.
Right. If Manny Wilkins can get on the ball, you don't know. To me, this is a team that struggles. They got to play Michigan State. They go to San Diego State. They play Washington State. There's some teams they're going to have to play.
They host Michigan State, though. So they
do host them.
Coming down to the desert's not easy for any Eastern team.
And we've seen that before. We've seen this
team
do some crazy things before. I think this is a team that gives you that one upset that gets you excited for next year. Like, that's the way I look at this team. They're going to beat somebody, and you're going to go, oh, wow. The Sun Devils, wow. We'll see what happens there. I don't know if it's Michigan State, but they do. They got to take Washington on. They could. I think they're going to surprise somebody, and you're going to be like, oh, damn. And you know what? For Herm Edwards, ASU doesn't have a ton of expectation. He's a big name and he excites people, but there's not like he didn't get hired at USC or UCLA even. He got hired at what's it called? It's a little surprised, by the way, that Blake Barnett transferred. This is a big time prospect. Alabama recruit signing. It's kind of a bummer he left, but it is what it is. I think Edwards 3 or 4 years from now will get his guys in there. His name will bring people, but they're just not ready this year.
Oh, for sure. No, I totally agree with that. I mean,
but I don't know if I'd want to play them.
No, it's weird with them being where they are. And
right.
I mean, like I mentioned, the nice thing about the Pac-12 is that eventually somebody has to lose at home, but the nice thing is that any team can just turn on their home field advantage because it's so diverse. You're either in the desert, the Pacific Northwest, Southern California, the Rocky Mountains. It's absurd. And somebody's going to trip up at some point. So nothing's ever a complete lock within this conference. We mentioned it with USC trying to go north, teams trying to go to the desert, Utah having an incredible advantage. It's just fun that way. And it's a good conference. It sucks that the last couple of years they've cannibalized themselves, but I think they finally get their due this year with how much talent there is in terms of getting a team to the playoff. But it sounds like, I think we both have Washington winning.
I do.
Yeah, I have Washington over Arizona. You have them over USC. Mm-hmm. I think even if they have 2 losses, it's going to be tough. But I think even with 1 loss, I think they're safe to get in.
And by the way, I would almost rather see it be Stanford versus Arizona or Oregon. I want a new team in that grouping there. I just think Washington's been a really good program for the past 5, 6, 7 years. They're good. I mean, they're just good. So
yeah, we're now in the follow through of the Washington pendulum swing.
Yes. I would tell you that this team, this conference definitely has 2 high-level Heisman hopefuls, Bryce Love and Khalil Tate. I think that a guy like Jake Browning, if he shows up.
Yeah, I was about to say Browning could be up there, but I think it's going to be tough.
Or Justin Herbert, but they're going to have to really blow it up. There's a lot of other good quarterbacks who will put up a lot of numbers, and you're always going to have the East Coast bias that happens with, other than USC, really any other school in the Pac-12, there's a huge East Coast bias against them. Really, since they've had 5 players runner-up since Toby Gerhardt. They've had 5 runners-up to the Heisman, second place finishes. That's a tough thing to look at.
And that's in the last 10 years, too. So, I mean, good on them, but it's 0 wins, right?
That was Toby
Marcus Mariota won.
It was Toby Gerhardt, Andrew Luck, I believe, McCafferty.
Yep.
Love. Who am I missing?
Did Mariota get a runner-up before he won?
He was Oregon.
Oh, you're saying Stanford has runners-up.
Stanford has 5 runners-up, I believe. Stanford,
damn.
Heisman. Let me see if I can.
Regardless, I mean, the Pac-12 just pumps out talent, though. That's the point you're trying to make. And Stanford is sneakily always there. Zach Ertz is that for tight end. And I mean, Andrew Luck, all these different guys.
So how about this? Andrew Luck. So Toby Gerhardt was second. Almost beat Mark Ingram in 2009. That was just amazing to me, Toby Gerhardt. Andrew Luck the year after that, Andrew Luck finished second behind Cam Newton. The next season, he finished second behind Robert Griffin, and then Christian McCaffrey and.
So I was wrong on the didn't follow. Oh, just didn't win, I guess is what I read.
Yeah,
but regardless.
Season. Yeah. Anyway, just thought it was an interesting fact for you there.
No, definitely really interesting. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be fun. I think Washington, I'd say they could be getting 4, but I think they get in. I think they're pencil them in right now, and they really have to shoot themselves in the feet.
Yeah, here's what I would say. I totally could see Washington making the college football playoff. I could see USC and even Stanford a little bit. My concern is what we've seen year in and year out. A, the East Coast bias, but B, they cannibalize themselves again. And I think that's got to be a concern because we talked about Clemson. We have, the SEC's got a number of teams. The Big 12 and Big 10 have teams that you expect to be there in that conversation. Yeah. It's probably going to take an undefeated season from Washington.
Maybe, you think so? You don't even think one loss is enough?
I think they've built enough of a pedigree that they could at least match another one-loss team, but they're not going to – I don't know if a Pac-12 team has the ability to jump another team that's ranked high.
That's a really good point. I guess it depends on who's there at the end of the season, like last year. But
yeah, I mean, look,
how they end up.
Right. Well, think about last year: Alabama, Georgia, Clemson, and Oklahoma. Those are huge name programs.
Yeah, and Ohio State was right there.
You're right. And so the way when you hear you're like, wait, if you watch college football, you know how good Washington is. Stanford, but if you're just a casual fan, and sometimes of their 800 plus, whatever the voting is, they just people don't see them as these elite programs.
Oh,
they
for
should
sure.
They should be thought of that way. So
no, for sure. Yeah, it'll be interesting because USC last year thought they deserved it, and within that weekend, everyone was kind of like, "Oh, piss off! You're not in." Right. But we'll see how it goes. I mean, I'm super pumped, and I'm really excited to watch this conference and just for college football in general. But we will be back. We still have many more conferences to cover. Going to try to record some in person next week. Hopefully, I remember the computers that time.
That's all right. All right. Hey, I mean, I'm really looking forward. We've touched on 2 really important conferences. We're going to get into some real bread and butter. The remainder 3. And we're going to talk about some teams that aren't in a major conference that have an opportunity. I would tell you it looks like another great – we'll talk about the Pac-12, another great conference here.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But, Matt, I thank you. This was an awesome double edition.
Absolutely.
If you haven't listened to the ACC, go do that. If you have, your work is done until the next podcast drop. But for my man, Matty D, Matt DiStefano, I am Jordy Cannell, the G-Man, signing off. Have a good weekend, everybody. Enjoy the summer. And
stay tuned
go Birds
for the next couple pods. Oh, and go Birds. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. See you, buddy.